In 1869, 30-year-old Kedarnath Dutt, who was later to become the renowned Bhaktivinode Thakur, addressed an audience of Bengali intellectuals. His attitude was one of religious freedom and reform. He was a universalist, a rationalist, and a cosmopolitan, living in Calcutta, the second most cosmopolitan city in the world at that time, next to London. Bhaktivinode received a European education at a college level and was very well versed in Western thought. He sought to create a synthesis of modern thought and traditional Vaishnav thought. In this way, he appealed to the intellectuals of his day, those who had received a Western education like himself and had lost faith in the teachings of the Bhagavat Puran and other Vedic literatures. The way the Bhagavat was taught in Bhaktivinode's time, as well as today, and this is true in other religions as well, did not appeal to the intellectual class. It was too literalistic and fundamentalist and just carrying on a tradition that had not been modernized and updated. Bhaktivinode took it upon himself to update the understanding of the Vaishnav religion so that it could be more acceptable to thinking Bengalis of the time, such as himself. And so in this speech in Dinajpur, Bengal, he presented a very contemporary approach to the Bhagavat, and he started off by having an attitude in which he accepts the conclusions of people like Plato, Confucius, Vyas, Jesus, Schlegel, Kant, Spinoza, and especially Emerson, as people who have sought the truth and found it just like him and other Vaishnavas. In this way, he was very non-sectarian, eclectic universalist in his approach to spirituality. Bhaktivinode begins his talk by pointing out that it's the reader's duty to read with an aim to create, not just for fruitless retention, as he put it, because he saw that there was a need for correction and development of earlier thoughts that have been passed on to us, because he saw thought and history as progressive. He was a very Western person in his outlook on life because of his education and the culture. He lived in circles which included the Tagores and other notables in Bengali society. And these are the people he's addressing, that the Bhagavat does not have to be seen as an outdated religious book that only ignorant, superstitious people follow, but it contains essential spiritual truths, which, if properly understood, can reveal great insight for people. And so he became a champion of the Bhagavat, and throughout his life used this progressive approach to present the teachings of Chaitanya and his line in a way that modern-day Bengalis could accept. And so in this way, he combined this universal philosophical view with traditional religion, and he felt that this is the way to go for people today in the 19th century. And he also saw that party spirit is a great enemy of faith. He saw this sectarianism as a real barrier to understanding. He saw that a broad view, a view where you study the different philosophical and religious traditions with a sympathetic mind and realize that we're all talking about the same thing. So we should not be critical and sectarian in our approach to spiritual matters, but willing to give others who differ in their views the benefit of the doubt. In this way, he was very inclusive. And in the same way, following his footsteps, having been initiated by his son and disciple Lalita Prasad Thakur, and charged with bringing these teachings to the West, I am continuing to follow his example, and I have taken the teachings that he has passed on to me and presented them in a way that I hope is acceptable to Western intellectuals such as myself. So I have written Universalist Radhakrishnanism, the Way of Natural Devotion, to provide modern Western people with an access to these ancient teachings that come from Krishna Chaitanya and his disciples in what is known as the Gaudiya Vaishnav line. My line and Bhaktivinode Thakur's line, coming from Janavama, the Shakti of Nityananda Avadut, and through Lalita Prasad Thakur, my teacher, have presented these teachings in a way that is very accessible and ready to be translated into Western terms, which I have done following Bhaktivinode's teachings in his books. He wrote about 100 books and self-published them to put out this message. And this lecture that I am commenting on, the Bhagavat, is one of the few writings that came from his pen in the English language. And so we're very fortunate to have this talk in print. And I've been reading it since the 1970s when I first found it in India, and found it a very inspirational text indeed. So I'll be continuing a series on this little text, the Bhagavat. Be sure to subscribe and see the next video. Thank you.